Hey YouTube, this will be a subwoofer install in a 1999, the older body style of a Jeep Cherokee. I'm going to show you how to tap into the original stereo. In this case it's a tape deck because it doesn't have an aftermarket stereo with pre-outputs or subwoofer outputs for the amplifier. So instead we're going to tap into the speaker and the ignition source behind the stereo, just so the amp will turn on when the key is on and it has the signal it needs. So the first step though is we're going to pull off the fascia here, the panel that covers the stereo. There's no screws at all. It just this whole piece just pops right off. Just get up underneath. There's kind of little slots you can pull it in. I've already popped it off myself, and it just only clips, no screws. So that'll come off here. Just don't break it. Set it off aside. And then I've already pulled the screws out, but there's going to be a 10mm bolt here and one here. And then the stereo itself just comes right out. And looking here on the wiring harness, this red with a white stripe, that's our 12-volt ignition. So we're going to tap into that wire just so when and run a remote wire all the way back to the amp, just so when the key is on, that sends 12 volts to the stereo, because the stereo only turns on when the key's on. So in reality, that also will mean the amp will turn on when the key's on, and we'll show you how to do that later. So we're going to leave the stereo here for now. The biggest task is to get the big huge power wire through the firewall and into the cabin of the car. So we're going to do that first. So what I've done here is I went ahead and I have a little hanger that I pushed through this grommet. I don't know how well you can see it with the sun, but I pushed it right through there, and that's going to help me fish this wire through, and it just came out right up from underneath. And I made a loop on this wire, and I'm going to tape it so I can pull the wire through the firewall. Now, to help you a little bit more, I'm going to spray a little bit of WD-40 on there, just so it's a little bit slippery and it doesn't hang up on the rubber. And then I'm going to get this taped up and pull it through and show you from that point. Okay, see how I did that? Just wrapped the wire with the power wire on the hanger, and then I sprayed a little WD-40. It's a little wet. I'm going to go ahead and pull it through. So it comes from this side. So here's the grommet. Sorry, I accidentally locked my phone. I pulled it right through. See that? And the nice thing about going through a grommet, it'll reduce the possibility of moisture getting inside the cabin, because it'll automatically seal around the wire itself. So I'm going to pull the remainder of the slack through the firewall and leave just enough so I can zip tie it to existing wire in the engine so it doesn't get caught on anything. I'll show you from that point. Okay, so I pulled this through. I'm going to run this wire along and zip tie it to that thick wire loom. And I'm starting to mount the fuse holder right to the side of the firewall so it doesn't move around. I got to put in a second screw, and then I'm going to, again, like I said, zip tie and make it nice and clean. I put this wire loom that came with it on. And before I even mess with the battery at all, I'm going to make sure I disconnect the negative, just so I don't have any sparks or shorts or any damage to the vehicle. So look at this. Put that wire loom on, zip tied it all the way around. And that has a nice cover that I'll put on it. Everything goes right over to the battery terminal. So, but yet I haven't put it on the terminal yet. I don't want any shocks. When I'm ready to mess with that and actually do the electrical power side of things, when I plug it all in, I'll make sure I do it safe. Okay, since we're just about done under the hood, besides hooking up the battery, it's time to run the power wire to the back. So as it comes through, I'm going to take this panel off and this panel off, and it's held on by screws, and run it along the key panel. through here, all the way back along to the trunk area. So once I get all these panels off and run the wire, I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so as I was trying to get this off, obviously I don't want to take the whole seat out unless I have to, just to get this screw out and the screw out. So I was trying, I don't have a right angle bit, so I was trying to use my ratchet, and it wasn't working out too well. So I found out as you reach under, there's like a lip, and so what I did is I just been tucking. Just tuck up underneath, and it should be just fine. It won't fall out because there's a big lip underneath this panel, as you can feel. And so up underneath here, come to the firewall, goes immediately under that panel. That won't come out. I'm going to use that method all the way to the back. Okay, so for the screws that I could get out along this panel, I did pull out just so it's easier to tuck the wire up underneath. I just tucked it along here, up under the carpet, all the way out, and it came out right here, which gives me plenty of space. Now in the meantime, what I did is I mounted the amp on the back of the box, and then just cleanly put all the wires in there for the speakers all the way across, so nothing will get snagged or pulled out. It's nice and solid, and power wire is basically run. Now for the additional wire, I'll just tuck underneath this back seat. Just put it right back up under there. Other than that, power wire is done. Now the next step here is we're going to work on the ground wire. I gotta find probably a seatbelt bolt or a mount bolt, which is preferable because you know it's in the frame. If not, then I'll make sure you always clean the paint off, just so it has a good connection, and I'll make my own ground. So I'll show you from that point. Okay, so I'm running the ground. I'll run right along the power wire underneath the carpet, and I'm gonna put it right there because this is directly over the box frame of the Jeep. And so I'll put a couple long screws. Now, in case you don't have one of these, clean the paint off. Since it cleans it so well, you can use a screwdriver. Just make sure the paint is off, because the paint acts like an insulator and won't allow the ground to properly mount. And if it even does work at that point, you may have interference or low sound quality, so on and so forth. So I'm going to go ahead and mount my ground there. And we're just about done with the positive and negative wire of the amp. And the next segment here, we'll start working on the RCA'S and the remote turn on wire. Okay, just a quick piece here. So I went ahead and got that ground done. Now, granted, it's not a bolt, and that's probably the best scenario, but I do have two heavy-duty self-tappers. The pan head, so they have a wide angle, and I got two in there, and it is not going anywhere. Got the boot on, and it's on bare metal. Perfect scenario here. Okay, so we started on the RCA'S. So I don't want to run them with the power wire, just to make sure I don't have any interference. I mean, they are subs, and it's a sub amp, so there are a lot of filters, and they'll slow enough that you shouldn't have a problem. But just to be safe, I'm going to run it on this side. Just tuck it nice down in there. And then I'll come through and I go underneath the carpet and out from underneath the carpet. From there, I just pulled out that screw, and same thing, just like the power wire, I'm gonna run it all the way up to the front. I'll show you from that way. Now the RCA'S tucked up all the way, just similar to the power wire, all the way up underneath on the right hand side of the car. Then I have them come up here, and I'm just gonna tuck it underneath the carpet and run it up along, and have it out here. I'm gonna go, keep going, come out from underneath the carpet, up underneath this panel, because at this point, when we put this panel back on, we'll be up underneath. And then there's access back behind, and I'm gonna come out right there behind the radio. Okay, so there's existing wire up underneath here, and I just zip tied it. Okay, so one up there. I just fit it with my hands up to the top. So there's a little bit left, and we'll just bundle it back behind the stereo itself. Now, a note here, I did run the remote turn on wire with the RCA'S, and the reason that's okay is typically your remote turn wire has low amperage, probably 1 to 5, maybe 10 amps tops going through that. Just enough where it'll turn on the amp, but not enough to make interference. So this is an okay wire to turn on, because this is not a power wire, it's a trigger wire, if that all makes sense. And so that's why it's okay to run that with the RCA'S, and not if we ran the RCA'S along with that big orange power wire. Okay, so I'm just about done here. What I'm going to do is this blue wire, we're going to tap into that red wire that I showed you earlier, that red wire here, that'll tap in there. So when the ignition's on, both the stereo and the amp will turn on at the same time. And when the key is turned back off, nothing will stay on to kill your battery. I will show you from that point. Okay, up to this point, I actually have never tapped into power yet, just because I didn't want any shorts or sparks. And so what I'm going to do at this point is remove the negative off, so I can start actually connecting wires up to the back of the stereo, and also in addition hook up the power wire to the battery. Wow, that was corroded. Holy cow. There it goes. Yeah, it's a little messy. Okay, so now we're free and safe to work on other parts of the car with the electrical system. Okay, now at this point, a lot of people are against these. You know, they are nice. It's just so I don't actually have to obstruct the factory wiring. I use these. Basically, they clamp on one wire and clamp on the other wire without actually breaking the line itself. As long as you make sure they're solid on there, they're going to be okay. Some people are totally for soldering. Some people like to cut the wire completely and put on crimp caps. It's just up to you, whatever works best for you, whatever resources you have. But these, I have this from Walmart. It's a Scosche line-out converter. So that'll go back to my subs right there. I'm not going to use this because I don't want to rely upon this to turn on the subs. I just went directly to the ignition wire right here, just so I won't have any issues turning on the unit. Now what I'm going to do from this point is if it does require power to convert it, I did hook it up, and then I did ground it. Now the white is the left side and the gray is the right side. With the line is the negative, without the line is the positive. Now I've located my rear speakers in back here. So the blue is actually the right rear speaker, blue white is positive, blue orange is negative, and then brown is the left side of the car. Brown positive is brown yellow, left rear positive is yellow, left rear negative is brown and light blue. Hopefully I didn't confuse you too much. So those are your back speakers right there. This is your left side, this is your right side. Now on here, pink is your constant. Like I told you, red is your switched, black is your ground. Okay, so I got everything hooked up here. I ran out of these tappers, so I actually just use splice connectors. And everything's solid, nothing's gonna come loose. And I'm gonna zip tie and clean this all up here. So the RCA'S plug into that. I just tape that off, so there are no issues with that grounding out anywhere. This is the base knob that runs down same place as the RCA'S, and I'm going to mount the base knob right there. And yeah, so let's go to the battery. Now at this point I confirm that everything's plugged in correctly, so I can put the battery negative on, which I have for you. And then so my fuse goes all the way up in here and taps into the accessory power output. And I just cut a little hole in that so it fits on there perfectly. Nice and solid. And so we are done under the hood. I'm going to tighten that back up, and I'll button up behind the dash, and I'll show you from that point. Okay, So car's running just to make sure the battery didn't go dead on me, even though I unhooked the battery. And then so I got everything back in. I'll reassemble everything just opposite of how I took it apart, and we'll do a final test here and see how it sounds. Okay, so let's do a final test here. Sorry for the annoying beep. Got everything back together. Sure enough, readjust the clock. Nice and clean. Let's finish up tucking that wire away. We're good to go. Now this was a 1999 Jeep Cherokee, same body style. If you have any questions, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. Have a good one.